think the picture that's emerging for 2011 has been a marked rise in hotel prices globally by 4%. And I think that that is a more remarkable performance than many people might expect, because that's against a backdrop of economic gloom and some unusual pressure on the travel industry in 2011. I think some of the main stories that are emerging here is that overall occupancy has risen 2 to 3%. And I think that that in turn is due to the continued steady progression of business travel coming back into the market. And that's an important story, because the occupancy that helps with in hotels is supporting this more than gentle rise in hotel prices. And then I think finally, air passengers been up 6% is a story of a general, more widespread recovery in travel. Well, this year there's been a multitude of factors. If we just start with the positives for the moment, the major story is the return of business travel. That steady increase in business travel that we saw appearing in 2010 has continued in 2011. It's now 9% up in 2011 over 2010. And I would say that there is also a return of economic visibility, both for businesses and for the consumer, and that is providing a little bit more confidence about making bookings that wasn't there to the same extent in 2010 and 2009. Now, on the negative side, there were quite a few negatives in 2011, which is why the performance in pricing is that more interesting as a result. So it was a particularly bad year for natural disasters. We had floods in Thailand, we had the tsunami and the earthquake in Japan, we had the earthquake in Christchurch in New Zealand. Then on the political side, there was a lot of political disturbances. There was the Arab Spring, the war in Libya, and that created a lot of disturbance for the typical travel pattern in the Mediterranean in the summer. We had the well-attested economic disturbances both in the US and in the Eurozone, the rolling sense of crisis that we had there. And then finally, air prices went up still farther in 2011, and air prices going up always tends to depress the hotel prices. But as with politics, so all of these effects are ultimately local in the global travel market. So even with all this backdrop, still hotel prices for the Rugby World Cup in New Zealand, that really helped to inflate the hotel prices there. You had a rolling series of state visits, very unusually in Ireland, that supported the recovery of hotel prices there. And then finally, the royal wedding in the UK lifted prices, particularly in the capital. Okay, well, let's start with the North American market. So pretty good recovery in the North American market, 5% increase in hotel prices in 2011. And this has been very much a story of the business recovery in North America. So business recovery, as we were saying earlier, an overall global 9% increase, but that has been a particularly marked increase in North America. Now, still, in North America, this rise only brings us back to prices last seen at the end of 2004. So for the consumer, no less than for the business, hotel prices still tremendous source of value in North America in the overall context of price rises. Now, if we move on to EMEA, that is the weaker price increase in the Western world, and that is only 2% year on year, probably held back by the crisis in the Eurozone, most of all. And again, just for context, prices are still where they were towards the end of 2004. So again, great value for the consumer in Europe at the moment. And indeed, the euro fell as a currency against, for example, strong feeder markets such as the UK and such as America. And that, interestingly, wasn't enough to help prices grow by more than 2%. So that says something about the strength of the headwind in Europe and Middle East during the period. Now, if we move on to Latin America, pretty good growth in line with the global average, 4%. And this is more a story of Brazil, where there's been, for most of 2011, a very, very strong, buoyant economy has driven up pricing there. Mexico, which is the other major country, there has had sort of steady as she goes, sort of economic performance and price rises. And however, on a 7 to 8 year view, if we go back to when we started the hotel price index in Hotels.com back in 2004, the greatest price recovery overall has been seen in Latin America. Now finally, if we turn our attention to the Far East, well, in the Far East you have two different tales really going on. You have a very different story in continental Asia. In Asia, you are seeing this is the only area where prices have actually fallen by 2% in the region in 2011. Natural disasters such as the ones we earlier referred to in Japan, in Thailand and so forth, a very big part of the story there. And the strong occupancy that we have seen in some of the major hubs there, the Singapores, the Hong Kongs and so forth, still not enough to lift overall prices in the region. Now, on the other hand, if we turn to the other half of the story, which is what's going on in Australia and New Zealand, quite strong performance, plus 8% in hotel prices in that part of the world, very much led by very, very strong and resurgent, continually resurgent Australian economy and very, very strong Australian dollar. And that is really propping up the pricing of hotels there. Well, I think we're seeing that more and more bookings are being made on smartphones and tablets versus 5 years ago when it was very much a desktop revolution. And we're seeing that millions and millions of people are downloading the Hotels.com applications for smartphones and tablets. And this is a phenomenon that is rapidly growing. We're certainly seeing a pattern where people are researching on their desktops and then they're booking on their smartphones, very often at very short booking windows. And in particular, the phenomenon that you see with the smartphones is people are making a lot of last-minute bookings. Bookings for tonight, bookings for tomorrow, and that is causing us in Hotels.com to be placing a lot of very, very special deals just for tonight or just for tomorrow onto the smartphone applications.